lights were flashing in the grand ballroom. Softly the music like sweet tunes. There came my sweetheart, my love, my own. I wish your father leave me alone. When I return, dear, there stood a man, kissing my sweetheart as lovers come. Down fell the glass and broke in that soul. Just as my heart was after the ball. After the ball is over, after the parade more, after the dancers leaving, after the stars are gone, many a heart is aching. If you could read them all, many the photo was burning after the ball.
Rolling through the park one day, in the merry month of May, I was surprised by a pair of roguish eyes. In a moment my poor heart was stole away. A smile was all she gave to me. Of course we were as happy as can be. I immediately raised my hat, and finally she remarked, I never shall forget that lovely afternoon. I met her at the fountain in the park. Tell me, pretty maiden, are there any more at home like you?
There are a few, kind sir, but simple girls and proper too.
Then tell me, pretty maiden, what these very simple girlies do.
Kind sir, their manners are perfection and the opposite of mine.
Then take a little walk with me, and then I can see what a most particular girl should.
I may love you too well to let you go and flirt with those at home, you know, for I must love someone.
Then why not me?
For I must love someone really, and it might as well be you. Oh, Father, dear Father, come home with me now. The clock in the steeple strikes 1. You said you were coming right home from the shop as soon as your day's work was done. The fire has gone out, the house is all dark, and Mother's been watching since tea. With poor brother Benny so sick in her arms, and no one to help her but me. Come home, come home, come home. Please, Father, dear Father, come home.
won't be a stylish marriage. I can't afford a carriage, but you'll look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two. It won't be a stylish marriage. I can't afford a carriage, but you'll look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two. Casey would waltz with the strawberry blonde, and the band played on. He'd glide across the floor with the girl he adored, and the band played on. His brain was so loaded it nearly exploded. The poor girl would shake with alarm. He'd ne'er leave the girl with the strawberry curl, and the band played on.
Sweetheart, I'm her beau. She's my Annie, I'm her Joe. Soon we'll marry, never to part. Little Annie Rooney is my sweetheart. East side, west side, all around the town, the tots sang ring-a-rosy, London Bridge is falling down. Boys and girls together, me and Mamie O'Rourke, we tripped the light fantastic on the sidewalks of New York.
An old man's sleep, begged for a story to Uncle Please. Why are you single? Why live alone? Have you no babies? Have you no home? I had a sweetheart years ago. Where he is now, and you will soon know. Listen to the story, I'll tell it all. I believe her face lives after the ball. Bright lights were flashing in the grand ballroom. Softly the music like sweet tunes. There came my sweetheart, my love, my own. I wish of water, leave me alone. When I returned, dear, there stood a man, kissing my sweetheart as lovers come. Down fell the glass and broke in that soul, just as my heart
Rolling through the park one day, in the merry month of May, I was surprised by a pair of roguish eyes. In a moment my poor heart was stole away. A smile was all she gave to me. Of course we were as happy as can be. I immediately raised my hat, and finally she remarked, I never shall forget that lovely afternoon. I met her at the fountain in the park. Tell me, pretty maiden, are there any more at home like you?
There are a few, kind sir, but simple girls and proper too.
Then tell me, pretty maiden, what these very simple girlies do.
Kind sir, their manners are perfection and the opposite of mine.
Then take a little walk with me, and then I can see what a most particular girl should.
I may love you too well to let you go and flirt with those at home, you know, for I must love someone.
Then why not me?
For I must love someone really, and it might as well be you. Oh, Father, dear Father, come home with me now. The clock in the steeple strikes 1. You said you were coming right home from the shop as soon as your day's work was done. The fire has gone out, the house is all dark, and Mother's been watching since tea. With poor brother Benny so sick in her arms, and no one to help her but me. Come home, come home, come home. Please, Father, dear Father, come home.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our closing performance of The Importance of Being Earnest, presented by Arizona Homeschool Theater Group. AZHT has been producing theater and providing theater education in the Phoenix community for over 13 years, and this is our first full production in Zoom, though we did try our hand at a couple of Zoom showcases last fall with Shakespeare Zoom and Picture Book Theater, and we had so much fun, we thought we'd just do a whole big thing with the whole kit and caboodle this time. So we're so glad that you're able to join us from both near and far. That's one of the many benefits of running a performance in a virtual setting. Of course, we are eager to get back to live theater, but in the meantime, we are enjoying this as much as we can, and we hope you do too. Let's see here. These actors and their families, as always, have worked very hard to create some theater magic for you, especially figuring out how to do that in this new format for them. We will be recording the show and posting it to YouTube at a later date, so you'll be able to see it again or share it with friends and family or community members who are unable to attend at this time. Or if you decide you would like to see the other cast, we have a few of the characters that are double cast, and the other cast had their closing this afternoon. A couple of things about Zoom settings. We've done our best to make sure that you are seeing what we want you to see, but each device has a mind of its own at times. So if you have a choice, you might select gallery view and hide non-video participants if you're seeing a bunch of crazy names around the scene. Around the screen. You will see a random actor's or character's name in between the acts, but that seems to be out of our hands. We run about an hour and 40 minutes, and we will have, within that time, 2 5-minute intermissions, so we can reset between the acts. We'll play a little music for you. You can run to the restroom or grab yourselves a snack during that time. Again, 2 5-minute intermissions. As always, feel free to laugh and clap and cheer. Don't worry, we actually can't see you or hear you. So if there's any noise in your home, it's not bothering us. But we think you'll have more fun if you go ahead and laugh just amongst yourselves. And we'll enjoy that energy out there. We will have a talk back session at the end of the show so that you can meet our young actors and ask them any questions or offer any comments in the chat box. Please leave the chat box alone until after the show, because we do use that for backstage communication while we are running, but you'll be more than welcome to type all kinds of comments in there once the performance is complete. A little bit about the show. The Importance of Being Earnest is Oscar Wilde's most enduring and favorite comedy. It's been beloved by theater groups, both amateur and professional, for 125 years, and audiences too. We hope you enjoyed as much as we do. I've loved it ever since I did a piece of it in high school, and I find new things every time these actors get on stage, new things to enjoy. So whether you've never heard of it or whether you've seen it a dozen times and you're an expert, I think you'll find something new with these particular actors and with this format. Without further ado, I really want you to go ahead and enjoy the show. So I'm going to get off stage and I present to you The Importance of Being Earnest.
Did you hear what I was playing, Lane?
I didn't think it's polite to listen, sir.
Sorry for that. For your sake. I should play accurately. Anyone can play accurately. But instead I play with a wonderful expression. As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep silence for life.
Yes, sir.
Oh, and speaking of the science of life, have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
Oh, by the way, then, I see from your book that on Thursday night, when Lord Torben and Mr. Worthing were dining with me, 8 bottles of champagne are into that having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it that in a bachelor's establishment the servants invariably drink the champagne?
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I have often observed that in married households, the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Good heavens, is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I've had very little experience of it. Up to the present, I've only been married once, and that was in consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I don't know that I am much interested in your family life, Lane.
No, sir, I never think of it myself. It is not a very interesting subject.
That will do, Lane, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the lower orders don't set us a good example, what on earth is the use of them? They seem, as a class, to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Ernest Worthing.
How are you, my dear Ernest? What brings you up to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What else should bring one anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algie?
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
In the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It is excessively boring.
And who are the people you amuse?
Oh, neighbours, neighbours.
Got nice neighbours in your part of Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them.
How immensely you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is your county, is it not?
Shropshire? Yes, of course. Hello! But why all these cups? Why cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance in one so young? Who is coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolen.
How perfectly delightful.
Yes, but I don't think Aunt Augusta will quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolen is perfectly disgraceful. It's almost as bad as the way Gwendolen flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolen. I have come up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you had come for pleasure. I call that business.
How utterly unromantic you are.
I really don't see anything romantic in proposing. It's very romantic to be in love. But there's really nothing romantic in a definite proposal. Why, one may be accepted. One usually is, I believe. Then the excitement is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If I ever get married, I'll certainly try to forget the fact.
I have no doubt about that, dear Algie. The divorce court was specially invented for people whose memories are so curiously constituted.
Do not touch the cucumber sandwiches. They were especially for Lady Bracknell. Have some bread and butter. The bread and butter is for Gwendolen. Gwendolen's devoted to bread and butter.
And very good bread and butter it is, too.
Well, you need not eat it all. You act as if you were married to her already. You are not married to her already. I don't think you ever will be.
Why on earth do you say that?
I don't give you my consent.
Your consent?
My dear fellow, Gwendolen is my first cousin, and before I allow you to marry her, you will first have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What on earth do you mean, Algie, by Cecily? I don't know anyone of the name of Cecily.
Here is the cigarette case you left in the smoking room the last time you dined here.
Do you mean to say that you have had my cigarette case all this time? I wish to goodness you would let me know. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you would offer one. I have to be more than usually hard up.
There is no good offering a large reward now that the thing is found.
It makes no matter, for now that I look at the inscription inside, I find that the thing isn't yours at all.
Of course it's mine. You've seen me with it 100 times, and you have no right whatsoever to read what is written inside. It is a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
Yes, but this isn't your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily, and you have just said you don't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, charming old lady she is too. Lives at Tunbridge Wells. Just give it back to me, Algie.
Yes, but if this cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily, who is your aunt who lives at Tunbridge Wells, then why should she call herself Little Cecily?
My dear fellow, what on earth do you mean by that? Some aunts are tall, some aunts are not tall. It's a matter that surely an aunt may be allowed to decide for herself.
Yes, but why does she call you her uncle? From little Cecily with her fondest love to her dear Uncle Jack. There's no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt, but why should an aunt, no matter what her size, call her own nephew her uncle? I can't quite get. Also, your name isn't Jack at all, it is Ernest.
It isn't Ernest, it's Jack.
You've always told me it was Ernest. I've introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You're the most earnest-looking person I ever saw in my life. It's perfectly absurd you're saying your name isn't Ernest. It is on your cards. Here is one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, the Albany. I shall keep this as proof if you ever try to deny to me or to Gwendolyn or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country, and the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but why does your small Aunt Cecily, who lives at Tunbridge Wells, call you her uncle? Come on, old boy, best have the whole thing out at once. Might I say that I have always suspected you of being a confirmed and secret Bunburyist, and I am quite sure of it now.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by Bunburyist?
I shall reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to tell me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now produce your explanation, and pray make it improbable.
My dear fellow, there is nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it is perfectly ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily lives in my place in the country, under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss PRISM.
Where is that place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. You are not going to be invited. I may tell you candidly that the place is not in Shropshire.
But I suspected that, my dear fellow. I Bunbury all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now, go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear Algie, one has to adopt a very high moral tone on all subjects. It is one's duty to do so. But as a high moral tone can hardly be said to conduce very much to either one's health or one's happiness, in order to get up to town, I have always pretended to have a younger brother of the name of Ernest, who lives in the Albany and gets into the most dreadful scrapes. That, my dear Algie, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is rarely pure, never simple. Modern life would be very tedious if it were either. What you really are is a Bunburyist. I was quite right in saying you were a Bunburyist. You are the one most advanced Bunburyist I know.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a very useful younger brother called Ernest, so that you may come up to town as often as you like. I have invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury, so that I may be able to go down to the country whenever I choose. Why, if it weren't for Bunbury's exceedingly bad health, I wouldn't be able to dine with you at Wilson's tonight, for I have been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine anywhere with me tonight.
Yes, you are very careless about sending out invitations. It's very foolish of you. Nothing annoys people more than not receiving invitations.
You had much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I have no intention of doing anything of the kind. I dine with her on Monday, and once a week is more than enough to dine with one's own relations. Also, now that I know you to be a Bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunbury.
I'm not a Bunburyist at all. If Gwendolen accepts me, I'm going to kill my brother. Indeed, I think I'll kill him in any case. Cecily's a little too much interested in him. He's rather a bore. So I'm going to get rid of Ernest, and I strongly advise you do the same with your invalid friend who has the absurd name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury, and if you ever get married, which seems to me to be extremely problematic, you will be very glad to know Bunbury. Any man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
That is nonsense. If I marry a charming girl like Gwendolen, and she's the only girl I ever saw in my life that I would marry, I certainly would want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. Ah, that must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives or creditors ever ring that Wagnerian manner. Now, if I distract Aunt Augusta for 10 minutes while you propose to Gwendolen, may I dine with you at Wilson's tonight?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about eating. It's so shallow of them.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you are behaving very well.
I'm doing very well, Aunt Augusta.
That is not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Dear me, you are smart.
I'm always smart. Am I not, Miss Worthing?
You're quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. That would leave absolutely no room for developments, and I intend to develop in many directions.
I am sorry if we are a little late, Algernon, but I was obliged to call upon dear Lady Harbury. I hadn't been there since her poor husband's death. I never saw a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And now I'll have a cup of tea and those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Won't you come sit here, Gwendolen?
Thanks, Mamma. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens, Lane! Why are there no cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially.
There are no cucumbers in the market today, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers?
No, sir, not even for ready money.
That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Aunt Augusta, I'm greatly distressed about there being no cucumber sandwiches, not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I had some crumpets with Lady Harbury, who seems to me to be living entirely for pleasure now. Thank you. I've quite a treat for you tonight, Algernon.
That's a great disappointment. I'm afraid I shall have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all.
I should hope not. It would put my table completely out.
The fact is, I have just received a telegram about my poor friend Bunbury. He is ill again. They seem to think I should be with him.
It is very strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to be suffering from curiously bad health.
Yes, poor Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
Well, I think it is high time that Mr. Bunbury made up his mind on whether or not he was going to live or die. This shilly-shallying with the question is absurd. I would be much obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury from me to be kind enough not to have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on you to arrange my music for me.
Speak to Bunbury about it, if he's still conscious, although I think I can assure you that he will be perfectly all right on Saturday. Now, I can run over the program I've drawn out if you'll step to the next room for a moment.
Thank you, Algernon. That is very thoughtful of you. Gwendolen, you will accompany me.
Certainly, Mamma.
Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I feel quite certain that they mean something else, and that makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I'm never wrong.
And I would like to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I've often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I've admired you more than any girl I have ever met. Since I met you.
I am quite well aware of that fact. For me, you've always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals, and my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Ernest. Something in that name inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend called Ernest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolen?
Passionately.
Darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
Ernest, my own Ernest.
But you don't mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest.
But your name is Ernest.
Yes, I know it is. But supposing it was something else.
That is clearly a metaphysical speculation. And like most metaphysical speculations, it has very little reference to the real facts of life, as we know them.
Personally, darling, to speak quite candidly, I don't much care for the name of Ernest. I don't think the name suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Well, really, Gwendolen, I think there are a lot of other much nicer names. I think Jack, for instance, a charming name.
Jack? No, there is very little music in the name of Jack, if any at all indeed. It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. Besides, Jack's a notorious domesticity for John, and I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. She will probably never know the entrancing pleasures of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Ernest.
Gwendolen, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once. There is no time to be lost.
Married, Miss Worthing?
Well, surely, you know that I love you, and you led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, that you were not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet.
May I propose to you now?
I think it an admirable opportunity, and to spare you any possible disappointment, I think it only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I'm fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolen?
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what have you got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolen, will you marry me?
Yes, of course, darling. You've had very little experience in how to propose.
My own darling, I have never loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. Oh, Ernest, what wonderful eyes you have. I hope you will always look at me just like that, especially when other people are present.
Mr. Worthing, rise, sir, from this semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Mamma, Mr. Worthing has not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
I'm engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Pardon me, you are nothing of the kind. When you do become engaged to someone, I, or your father, should his health permit him, will inform you of the fact. An engagement should come upon a young girl as a surprise. It is hardly a matter she should be allowed to arrange for herself. And now I have a few questions to put to you, Mr. Worthing. While I am making these inquiries, you, Gwendolen, will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mamma!
In the carriage, Gwendolen. Gwendolen, the carriage!
Yes, Mamma.
I feel inclined to tell you that you are not down on my list of eligible young men. However, I am quite ready to enter your name, should your answers be what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Well, yes, I must admit I smoke.
I am glad to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
A very good age to be married at. I am of the opinion that if a man desires to get married, he should either know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I am pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom is gone. Really, the whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would prove a serious danger to the upper classes, and probably lead to acts of violence in Grosvenor Square. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in investments?
In investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory.
I own a country house, with some land, of course, attached to it, about 1,500 acres, but I don't depend on that for my real income.
A country house? You do have a town house, I hope. A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolen could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
Well, I own a house in Belgrave Square.
What number in Belgrave Square?
149.
The unfashionable side. I thought there was something. However, that can be easily altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the side?
Both, if necessary, I presume. Now on to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father?
I'm afraid I really don't know. The fact is, Lady Bracknell, I said I had lost my parents. It would be nearer to the truth to say that my parents seem to have lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, an old gentleman of very charitable and kindly disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he happened to have a first-class ticket for Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It is a seaside resort.
And where did this charitable gentleman who had the first-class ticket for the seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
In a handbag?
Yes, Lady Bracknell. I was in a handbag, a somewhat large black leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
In what locality did this Mr. Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him in mistake for his own.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station?
Yes, the Brighton line.
The line is immaterial, Mr. Worthing. I confess I feel somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate bred in a handbag, whether it had handles or not, seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life, which reminds one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. And I presume you know what that unfortunate movement led to.
May I ask you then what you would advise me to do? I need hardly say I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolen's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to try and acquire some relations as soon as possible, and to make a definite effort to produce at any rate one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
Well, I don't see why I could possibly manage to do that. I can produce the handbag at any moment. It is in my dressing room at home. I really think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What has it got to do with me? You can hardly imagine that I and Lord Bracknell would dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a parcel. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning. For goodness sake, Algie, don't play that ghastly tune. How idiotic you are.
Did it go off all right, old boy? You don't mean to say Gwendolen confused me.
Oh, Gwendolen is right as a trivet. As far as she is concerned, we are engaged. Her mother is perfectly unbearable. I never met such a gorgon. I don't actually know what a gorgon is like, but I'm quite sure Lady Bracknell is one. At any rate, she is a monster without being a myth, which is rather unfair. I beg your pardon, Algie. I suppose I shouldn't talk about your own aunt in that way before you.
Oh, I love hearing my relations abused. It's the only thing that allows me to put up with them. Relations are a tedious pack of people.
You don't think there's any chance of Gwendolen becoming like her mother in about 150 years, do you?
All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. No man becomes like this. That is his. By the way, have you told Gwendolen about your being earnest in town, Jack in the country?
The truth isn't quite the sort of thing one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman. Besides, by the end of the week, I shall have got rid of Ernest. I'll say he died in Paris, carried off suddenly by a severe chill.
Didn't you say this Miss CARDEW was a little too much interested in your poor brother Ernest? Won't you feel his loss a great deal?
Oh, Cecily isn't a silly romantic girl, I am glad to say. She has a capital appetite, goes on long walks, and pays no attention at all to her lessons.
I would rather like to see Miss Cecily.
I will take very good care that you never do. She's excessively pretty, and is only just 18.
Have you told Gwendolen that you have an excessively pretty ward who is only just 18?
One doesn't just blurt these things out to people. Cecily and Gwendolen are perfectly certain to be extremely great friends. I'll bet you anything in the world that half an hour after they have met, they will be calling each other sister.
Women only do that after they've called each other a lot of other things first.
Algie, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Miss Worthing.
Really, Gwendolen, I don't think I can last at all.
Ernest, we may never be married. From the look on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regard to what their children say to them. Any leverage I ever had over Mamma, I lost at the age of 3. But nothing she can possibly do can alter my eternal devotion to you.
Dear Gwendolen.
The story of your romantic origins, as related to me by Mamma with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your town address is the only I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Woolton, Hertfordshire.
It may be necessary to do something desperate. I'll communicate with you daily.
My own one.
Algie, you may turn around now.
Thanks, I've turned around already.
You may also ring the bell.
You will let me see you to your carriage, Miss Fairfax?
Certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
A glass of sherry, Elaine.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow I'm going bunting.
Yes, sir.
Hope tomorrow will be a fine day.
It never is, sir.
Elaine, you're a perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
As a sensible intellectual girl, only girl I ever cared for in my life. What on earth are you so amused at?
Oh, I'm a little anxious about poor Bunbury's all.
If you're not careful, your friend Bunbury is going to get you into a serious scrape someday.
I love scrapes. The other things that are never serious.
That is nonsense. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.
Casey would waltz with the strawberry blonde, and the band played on. He'd glide across the floor with the girl he adored, and the band played on. But his brain was so loaded, it nearly exploded. The poor girl would shake with alarm. He'd ne'er leave the girl with the strawberry curl, and the band played on. In the good old summertime, in the good old summertime, strolling through the shady lane with my baby mine. You hold her hand and she holds yours, and that's a very good sign that she's your tootsie wootsie in the good old summertime. My Bonnie lies over the ocean, my Bonnie lies over the sea, my Bonnie lies over the ocean. Oh, bring back my Bonnie to me. Bring back, oh, bring back my Bonnie to me, to me. Bring back, oh, bring back my Bonnie to me. School days, dear old golden rule days, reading and writing and arithmetic, taught to the tune of a hickory stick. You were my queen in calico, I was your bashful Romeo. You wrote on my slate, I love you, Joe, when we were a couple of kids. Oh, when we were a couple of kids.
Cecily, Cecily, your German grammar is on the table. Pray open it at page 15. We will repeat yesterday's lesson.
I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well that I look quite plain after my German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every way.
Dear Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he is so serious that I am sure he cannot be quite well.
Cecily, I'm surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has many troubles in his life. You mustn't forget his constant anxiety about that unfortunate young man, his brother.
I wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometimes. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. You, I'm sure, certainly would.
I'm not sure I would desire to reclaim him. I am not in favor of this modern mania of turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. As a man sows, so let him reap. You must put away your diary, Cecily. I don't see why you should keep a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to record the most wonderful secrets of my life. If I did not write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary that we all carry about with us.
I believe memory is responsible for nearly all the 3-volume novels that Moody sends us.
Do not speak slightingly of the 3-volume novels, Cecily. I wrote one myself in earlier days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? How wonderfully clever you are. I hope it did not end happily.
The good ended happily, the bad unhappily. That is what fiction means.
And was your novel ever published?
Alas, no. The manuscript, unfortunately, was abandoned. I use the word in a sense of lost or mislaid. To your work, child. These speculations are profitless.
But I see dear Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
And how are we this morning? Miss Prism, you are, I trust, well.
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her much good to have a short stroll in the park with you, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I have not mentioned anything about a headache.
Oh, I know that, dear Miss Prism. But I felt instinctively that you had a headache. Indeed, I was thinking about that, and not about my German lesson when the rector came in.
I hope, Cecily, you are not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That is strange. Were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically. My metaphor is drawn from bees. But I must not disturb Egeria and her pupil any longer.
Egeria? My name is Laetitia, Doctor.
A classical allusion, merely, drawn from the pagan authors. I shall see you both, no doubt, at evensong.
I think, dear Doctor, I will have a stroll with you. I find I have a headache after all, and a walk might do it good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism, with pleasure. We might as go as far as the schools and back.
That would be delightful. Cecily, you will read your political economy in my absence. The chapter on the fall of the rupee you may omit. It is somewhat too sensational.
Horrid political economy, horrid geography, horrid German.
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven over from the station. He said he was anxious to speak with me privately for a moment.
To Ernest Worthing, B4 the Albany, W. Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. He said he wanted to speak with you privately for a moment.
Ask Mr. Ernest Worthing to come here.
Yes, miss.
I've never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I am so afraid he will look just like everyone else. He does.
You're my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
I am not little. I believe, in fact, I am more than usually tall for my age. But I am your cousin Cecily, and you, I see from your card, are my cousin Ernest, my wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, I'm really not wicked at all, cousin Cecily. You mustn't think I'm wicked.
If you are not, then you have certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. I hope that you have not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked and really being good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Oh, of course I have been. Rather reckless.
I'm glad to hear it.
And now that you mention the subject, I have been very bad in my own small way.
I don't think you should be so proud of that, though I am sure it was very pleasant.
It's much pleasanter being here with you.
I cannot understand how you are here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back till Monday afternoon.
That is a great disappointment. I am obliged to go up to town Monday morning. I have a business appointment that I am anxious to miss.
I still think you should wait until Uncle Jack gets back. I am sure he wants to speak to you about your emigrating.
About my what?
About your emigrating. He's gone up to town to buy your outfit.
Oh, I would never let Jack buy my outfit. He's no taste in neckties at all.
I don't think you will require neckties. Uncle Jack is sending you to Australia.
Australia? I'd sooner die.
Well, he said at dinner on Wednesday night that you would have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Well, my counsel in the next world and Australia have not been particularly encouraging. This world is good enough for me for now, Cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
I'm afraid I'm not that. That is why I wish for you to make it your mission to reform me. You will make that your mission, won't you, Cousin Cecily?
I'm afraid I've no time this afternoon.
Then you wouldn't mind my reforming myself this afternoon.
It's rather quixotic of you, but I think you should try.
I will. I feel better already.
You look a little worse.
Well, that is because I'm hungry.
Oh, how thoughtless of me. I should have remembered that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
Thank you. Might I have a buttonhole first? I never have any appetite to myself a buttonhole first.
A Marshall Neal?
I'd rather a pink rose.
Why?
Because you are a pink rose, Cousin Cecily.
I don't think you should talk to me like that. Miss Prism never says such things to me.
Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You're the prettiest girl I ever saw.
Miss Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
There are none of any sensible man. Be glad to be called him.
I shouldn't like to catch a sensible man. I wouldn't know what to talk to him about.
You are too much alone, dear doctor. You should get married. A misanthrope I can understand. A womanthrope never.
Believe me, I do not deserve so neologistic a phrase.
You do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that by persistently remaining single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation. This very celibacy leads weaker vessels astray.
But is a man not equally attractive when married?
No married man is ever attractive except to his wife.
And often, I'm told, not even to her.
That depends on the intellectual sympathies of a woman. Maturity can always be depended on. Young women are green. I spoke horticulturally. My metaphor was drawn from fruits. But where is Cecily? Mr. Worthing.
Mr. Worthing?
This is indeed a surprise. We did not look for you till Monday afternoon.
I have returned much sooner than expected. Dr. CHASUBLE, you are well, I hope?
Dear Mr. Worthing, I trust this garb of woe does not betoken some terrible calamity?
My brother.
More shameful debts and extravagance.
Still leading his life of pleasure?
Dead.
Your brother Ernest dead?
Quite dead.
What a lesson for him. I trust he will profit by it.
Mr. Worthing, I offer you my sincere condolence. You have at least the consolation of knowing that you are always the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
Poor Ernest. He had many faults, but it is a sad, sad blow.
Very sad indeed. Were you with him at the end?
No, he died abroad, in Paris, in fact. I had a telegram last night.
And was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
As a man sows, so let him reap.
Charity, dear Miss Prism, Charity, none of us are perfect. I myself am peculiarly susceptible to drafts.
That reminds me, Dr. Chasuble, you do know how to christen, all right? That is, you are continually christening, aren't you?
It is, I regret to say, one of the rector's most constant duties in this parish. I've often spoken to the poorer classes on the subject, but they don't seem to know what thrift is.
But is there any particular infant in whom you are interested, Mr. Worthing? Your brother was, I believe, unmarried, was he not?
Oh, yes.
People who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
But it is not for any child, dear doctor, no. The fact is, I would like to be christened myself, this afternoon, if you have nothing better to do.
But surely, Mr. Worthing, you have been christened already.
I don't remember anything about it. But of course, I don't know if you think I'm a little too old now.
Not at all. The sprinkling, and indeed the immersion of adults, is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
You need have no apprehensions. The sprinkling is all that is necessary, or indeed I think advisable. Our weather is so changeable. At what hour would you wish this ceremony performed?
Oh, I might trot round at about 5:30, if that would suit you.
Perfectly, perfectly. Now, dear Mr. Worthing, I will not intrude any longer into the house of sorrow. I would merely beg you not to be too much bowed down by grief. What seems to us bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
This seems to me a blessing of the extremely obvious kind.
Uncle Jack, oh, I am pleased to see you back. But what horrid clothes you've got on. Do go and change them.
Cecily.
Uncle Jack, what's the matter? Do look happy. I've got such a surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother.
Who?
Your brother, Ernest. He arrived about half an hour ago.
That is nonsense. I haven't got a brother.
Oh, don't say that. However badly he may have behaved to you in the past, he is still your brother. I'll go tell him to come out.
These are very joyful tidings.
After we had all been resigned to his loss, his sudden return seems to me peculiarly distressing.
My brother's in the dining room. I don't know what it all means. I think it perfectly absurd. Good heavens!
Brother John, I have come down from town expressly to tell you that I'm very sorry for all the trouble I have caused you and intend to lead a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you're not going to refuse your own brother's hand?
Nothing will induce me to take his hand. I think his coming down here disgraceful. He knows perfectly well why.
Do be nice, Uncle Jack. Ernest has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, and surely there must be much good in one who is kind to an invalid and leaves the pleasures of London to sit by a bed of pain.
Oh, he has been talking about Bunbury, has he? Well, I won't allow him to talk to you about Bunbury or about anything else. It is not to drive one perfectly frantic.
Although I admit that the faults were all on my side, Brother John's coldness is peculiarly painful.
Uncle Jack, if you don't shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me?
Never, never, never.
Well, this is the last time I shall ever do it.
I think we might leave the two brothers together.
Cecily, you will come with us.
Certainly, Miss Prism. My little task of reconciliation is over.
You young scoundrel, Algy, you have got to get out of this place as soon as possible. I don't allow any Bunburying here.
I put Mr. Ernest's luggage in the room next to yours, sir. I suppose that is all right?
His luggage?
Yes, sir. 3 portmanteaus, a dressing case, 2 hat boxes, and a large luncheon basket.
I'm afraid I can't stay more than this time.
Merriman, order the dog cart at once. Mr. Ernest has been suddenly called back to town.
Yes, sir.
But if you've a lie you are, Jack, I haven't called back to town at all.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
My duty as a gentleman never interfered with my pleasure in the smallest degree.
I can quite understand that.
Well, Cecily is darling.
You are not going to be staying with me for a week as a guest or as anything else. You have got to leave by the 4:05 train.
I can't leave you while you're in mourning. It'd be most unfriendly of me. You would stay with me if I were in mourning, I suppose. I should think it most unkind if you didn't.
Where will you go if I change my clothes?
Yes, if you're quick about it. I haven't seen someone take so long to dress with such little result.
Well, at any rate, it is better than being always overdressed as you are.
I'm impatiently a little overdressed. I always make up for it by being immensely overeducated.
Your vanity is ridiculous. Your conduct an outrage, and your presence in my garden utterly absurd. This Bunburying, as you call it, has not been a great success for you.
I think it has been a great success. I'm in love with Cecily, and that is everything. Ah, there she is.
Oh, I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
He's going to send me away.
Then have we got to part?
I'm afraid so. It's a very painful parting.
It is always very painful to part from people whom one has known such a brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity, but even a momentary separation from someone whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you.
The dog cart is at the door, sir.
It can wait, Merriman, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
Cecily, I hope I shall not offend you then in saying that you seem to me to be, quite frankly and openly, the visible personification of perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you allow me, I will copy your remarks in my diary.
Oh, do you keep a diary? I'd give anything to look at it.
Oh, no. You see, it is simply a very young girl's records of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume form, I hope you will order a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I enjoy taking down from dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. Do go on. I am quite ready for more. Oh, don't cough, Ernest. I don't know how to spell cough.
Cecily, ever since I looked upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I've been in love with you, wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think you should tell me that you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't seem to make much sense, does it?
Cecily.
The dog cart is waiting, sir.
Tell her to come round next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew you were staying till next week at the same hour.
I don't care about Jack. I don't care for anyone in the whole world but you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy. Why, of course. We have been engaged for the last 3 months.
For the last 3 months?
Yes, it will be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
But how did we come to be engaged?
Well, ever since dear Uncle Jack confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you, of course, have formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. And a man who is much talked about is always very attractive. I dare say it was foolish, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
And when was the engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last. Worn out by your entire ignorance to my existence, I determined to resolve the matter one way or another, and after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you under this dear old tree here. The next day, I bought this little ring in your name.
Did I get that for you? It's very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you've wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It is the excuse I've always given you for leading such a bad life. And here is the box in which I kept all your dear letters.
My letters? But, Cecily, I haven't written you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I remember only too well that I was forced to write your letters for you. I wrote sometimes 3 times a week and oftener.
Darling. May I read them?
Oh no, they would make you far too conceited. The 3 you wrote me after I had broken off the engagement are so beautiful and so badly spelled that even now I can hardly read them without crying a little.
But was our engagement ever broken off?
Of course. You can see the entry if you like. Today I broke off my engagement with Ernest. I feel it is best to do so. The weather still continues charming.
But why did you break off the engagement, Cecily? What had I done? I did nothing at all. I'm very hurt to hear that you broke off the engagement, particularly when the weather was so charming.
Well, it hardly would have been a really serious engagement if it hadn't been broken off at least once, but I forgave you before the week was out.
What a perfect angel you are, Cecily.
You dear romantic boy.
You'll never break off our engagement again, Cecily.
Oh, I don't think I could break it off now that I have actually met you. Besides, there is the question of your name.
Yes, of course.
You must not laugh at me, darling, but it has always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone of the name of Ernest. The name inspires one with absolute confidence.
But you mean to tell me you couldn't love me if I had some other name?
But what name?
Oh, any name you like. ALGERNON, for instance.
But I don't like the name of ALGERNON.
Oh, my dear, sweet, loving Cecily, I really can't see why you'd object to the name of ALGERNON. It's a very aristocratic sort of name. Why, half the chaps in the bankruptcy court are called ALGERNON. But seriously, Cecily, couldn't you love me if my name was Algie?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I fear I wouldn't be able to give you my undivided attention.
Your rector is so experienced in all the rites and ceremonies of the church.
Oh yes, Dr. CHASUBLE is a very learned man. He has never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
I must see him at once for the most important christening business.
Oh.
I shan't be away more than half an hour.
Seeing that I have only met you, we have been engaged since February the 14th, and I have only met you just today, I don't think it would be possible to part with you for such a long period of time. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy. I like his hair so much. I shall enter his remarks in my diary.
A Miss Fairfax has just called to see Mr. Worthing. A most important business, Miss Fairfax states.
Isn't Mr. Worthing in his library?
Mr. Worthing went over in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Pray ask the lady to come here, and you can bring tea.
Yes, miss.
Miss Fairfax, most likely one of the good elderly women who is associated with Uncle Jack in some of his philanthropic work in London.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray let me introduce myself. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew? What a very sweet name. Something tells me we're going to be great friends. I already like you more than I can say. My first impressions of people are never wrong.
How nice of you to like me so much after we have known each other such a comparatively short period of time. Pray, sit down.
We're here on a short visit, I suppose.
Oh no, I live here.
Really? Your mother, no doubt, or some other female relative of advanced years resides here also.
Oh no, I have no mother, nor in fact any relations. I am Mr. Worthing's ward.
Oh, it is strange. He never mentions me that he a ward. How very secretive of him. He grows more and more interesting hourly. I'm not sure, however, that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. In fact, if I may speak candidly,
I do. I feel that whenever anyone has anything unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
well, to speak with perfect candour, dear Cecily, I wish that you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest has a strong, upright nature. He is the very soul of truth and honour.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolen. Did you say Ernest?
Yes.
But it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
Ernest never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
I'm sorry to say that they have not been on good terms for a long time.
That accounts for it. Cecily, you have lifted a load off my mind. I was growing almost anxious. Of course, you are quite sure that it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian?
Quite sure. In fact, I'm going to be his.
I beg your pardon?
Dearest Gwendolen, Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
I feel there must be some slight error. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear in the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
I feel you must be under some misconception. Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
It is strange, for he asked me to be his wife yesterday at 5:30. If you would care to verify the incident, pray do so. I never travel without my diary. One should always have something sensational to read on the train. I am so sorry, dearest Cecily, if it is any disappointment to you. But I believe I have the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I can tell you, dear Gwendolen, if it caused you any mental or physical anguish. But I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he clearly has changed his mind.
If the poor boy has been entrapped into any foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my dear boy may have gotten into, I shall never reproach him with it after we are married.
Do you allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? You are presumptuous.
Do you suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I trapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you?
Shall I lay tea here as usual, miss?
Yes, as usual.
Are there very many interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh yes, a great many. From the top of one of the hills quite close, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties? I don't think I should like that. I just hate crowds.
I suppose that's why you live in town.
Personally, I cannot understand how anybody manages to exist in the country, if anybody who's anybody does. The country always bores me to death.
May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you. Detestable girl, but I require tea.
Sugar?
No, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter, please. Cake is rarely seen in the best of houses nowadays.
And that to Miss Fairfax.
You have filled my cup with lumps of sugar, and though I asked most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake. From the moment I saw you, I distrusted you. I felt that you were false and deceitful. I'm never deceived in such matters. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
It seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I am trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have many other calls of similar character to make in the neighborhood.
Ernest, my own Ernest!
Gwendolen, darling.
A moment. May I ask you, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To dear little Cecily? Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
I feel there must have been some misunderstanding. You see, this is my guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
I beg your pardon?
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack? Oh.
Here is Ernest.
Oh, love.
A moment, Ernest. Are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To what young lady? Good heavens, Gwendolen?
Yes, to good heaven, Gwendolen. I mean to Gwendolen.
Oh, what could have put such idea into your pretty little head?
I felt there must be some slight error, Miss Cardew. That gentleman is my cousin, Mr. ALGERNON MONCRIEFF.
ALGERNON MONCRIEFF? Oh, are you called ALGERNON?
I cannot deny it.
Are you really called Jack?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But my name certainly is John. It has been John for years.
A gross deception has been practiced on the both of us.
My poor wounded Cecily.
My sweet wronged Gwendolen.
You will call me sister, will you not?
But there is just one question I would like to be allowed to ask my guardian.
Your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Worthing, where is your brother Ernest? Both of us are engaged to be married to your brother Ernest, so it is a matter of some importance that we know where your brother Ernest is at present.
Gwendolen, Cecily, I will tell you quite frankly that I have no brother Ernest. I have no brother at all. I've never had a brother, and I have not the smallest intention of ever having one in the future.
No brother at all?
None.
Had you never had a brother of any kind?
Never, not even of any kind.
I'm afraid it is quite clear, dear Cecily, that neither of us are engaged to anybody.
It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl to suddenly find herself in, is it?
Let us go into the house. They will hardly venture to come after us there.
No, men are so cowardly, aren't they?
This ghastly state of things is what you would call bunburying, I suppose.
Yes, and the most wonderful bunbury I've ever had in my life.
Well, the only small consolation I have in the whole of this wretched business is that your friend Bunbury's quite exploded. You'll be able to run down to the country quite so often as you used to, dear Algie, and a very good thing too.
Your brother is a lot of colour, isn't he? You won't be able to go up to town as often as your wicked custom was. Not a bad thing either.
As for Miss Cardew, I must say that your taking in a sweet, simple, innocent girl like that is quite inexcusable, to say nothing of the fact that she is my ward.
I can see no possible defence at all for your deceiving a brilliant, clever, thoroughly experienced young woman like Miss Fairfax, to say nothing of the fact that she is my cousin.
I wanted to be engaged to Gwendolen. That is all. I love her.
I simply want to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
There's certainly no chance of your marrying Miss Cardew.
I think that there is much likelihood of you and Miss Fairfax being united.
How can you sit there calmly eating muffins while we are in this horrible trouble? I can't make out. You seem to me perfectly heartless.
I can't eat muffins in an agitated manner. The butter will get on my cuffs. I must always eat muffins quite calmly. It is the only way to eat them.
I say it's perfectly heartless you're eating muffins at all, under the circumstances.
When I'm in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me.
Well, that is no reason you should eat them all in that greedy way.
But you just said it was perfectly heartless to eat muffins.
I said it was perfectly heartless of you. That is a very different thing.
Yes, but the muffins are the same.
Algy, I wish to goodness you would go.
But I've just made arrangements with Dr. CHASUBLE to be christened at 6:15 under the name of Ernest.
I made arrangements this morning with Dr. CHASUBLE to be christened myself at 5:30, and I naturally will take the name of Ernest. I have a perfect right to be christened if I like. There's no evidence that I've ever been christened by anybody. It is entirely different in your case. You have been christened already.
Yes, but I've not been christened for years.
Yes, but you have been christened. That is the important thing.
So I know my constitution can stand it. Might make you very unwell. But you can't have forgotten that someone very closely connected to you was nearly carried off this week in Paris by severe chill.
ALGERNON, I have already told you to go. I don't want you here. Why don't you go?
I haven't quite finished my tea yet, and there's still one muffin left.
Once there lived side by side two little maids, whose two dressed just alike, hair down in braids, blue gingham pinafores, stockings of red, little sunbonnets tied on each pretty head. When school was over, secrets they'd tell, whispering arm in arm down by the well. One day a quarrel came, hot tears were shed. You can play in our yard, but the other said, I don't want to play in your yard. I don't like you anymore. You'll be sorry when you see me sliding down our cellar door. You can holler down our rain bell, you can climb our apple tree. I don't want to play in your yard if you won't be good to me. Next day two little maids each other miss. Quarrels are soon made up, sealed with a kiss. Then hand in hand again, happy they go. Friends all through life to be, they love each other so. Soon school days pass away, sorrows and bliss. But love remembers yet quarrels and kiss. In sweet dreams of childhood we hear the cry, you can play in our yard, and the old reply, I don't want to play in your yard. I don't like you anymore. You'll be sorry when you see me sliding down our cellar door. You can't holler down our rain barrel. No, you can't. You can climb our apple tree. I don't want to play in your yard if you won't be good to me.
I hear them on a man approaching. With stealthy steps the pirates are approaching.
We are not coming for plain control, a story General Stanley told. We seek a penalty 50-fold for General Stanley's story. We seek a penalty 50-fold. We seek a penalty 50-fold. We seek a penalty 50-fold for General Stanley's story.
They come in force with stealthy stride. Our obvious course is now to hide.
With cat-like thread upon a flaming steel, in silence tread, a cautious way we feel.
They have been eating muffins. That looks like repentance.
They're looking at us. What effrontery.
They're coming in. That's very forward of them.
Let us preserve a dignified silence.
Certainly. It is the only thing to do now.
Mr. Worthing, I have something very particular to ask you. Much depends on your reply.
Gwendolen, your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Moncrieff, kindly answer me this question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
In order that I might have an opportunity of meeting you.
That seems a satisfactory explanation, does it not?
Yes, dear, if you can believe him.
I don't, but that does not affect the wonderful beauty of his answer.
True. In matters of great importance, style, not sincerity, is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you offer me for your pretending to have a brother? Was it in order that you might have an opportunity of coming up to town to see me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have the gravest doubts on the subject, but I intend to crush them. The explanation seemed to be quite satisfactory, especially Mr. Worthing's.
I am more than content with what Mr. Moncrieff said. His voice alone inspires absolute credulity.
Then you think we should forgive them?
Yes. I mean, no.
True, I had forgotten. There are principles at stake that one cannot surrender. Which one of us should tell them the task is not a pleasant one?
Could we not speak at the same time?
An excellent idea. I nearly always speak at the same time as other people. Would you take the time for me?
Certainly.
Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier. That is all.
Our Christian names?
That's all.
But we are going to be christened.
This afternoon.
For my sake, you're going to face this fearful ordeal.
I am.
Please me, you are willing to face this fearful ordeal?
I am.
Absurd to talk of equality of the sexes. Where self-sacrifice is concerned, men are infinitely beyond us.
We are.
Darling!
Darling!
Gwendolen, what does this mean?
Merely that I'm engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Sit down. Sit down immediately. Mr. Worthing, you must clearly understand that all communication between yourself and my daughter must cease immediately from this moment. On this point, as indeed on all points, I am firm.
I am engaged to be married to Gwendolen, Lady Bracknell.
You are nothing of the kind. And now as regards Algernon. Algernon!
Yes, Aunt Augusta?
May I ask if it is in this house that your invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, resides?
No, Bunbury doesn't live here. Bunbury's somewhere else at present. In fact, Bunbury's dead.
Dead? When did Mr. Bunbury die? His death was extremely sudden.
Oh, I killed Bunbury this afternoon. Bunbury died this afternoon.
What did he die of?
Oh, Bunbury? Oh, he was quite exploded.
Exploded? Was he the victim of a revolutionary outrage?
No, Aunt Augusta. I mean, Bunbury was found out. The doctors found out that Bunbury could not live, so Bunbury died.
He seems to have had great confidence in the opinion of his physicians. And now that we have finally got rid of Mr. Bunbury. May I ask, Mr. Worthing, who is that young person whose hand my nephew Algernon is now holding, in what seems to me a most peculiarly unnecessary manner?
That lady is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
I'm engaged to be married to Cecily, Aunt Augusta.
Pardon me.
Mr. Moncrieff and I are engaged to be married, Lady Bracknell.
I do not know whether there is anything peculiarly exciting in the air of this particular part of Hertfordshire, but the number of engagements that go on seems to me to be considerably above the proper average that statistics have laid down for our guidance. Mr. Worthing, may I ask if Miss Cardew has any connection with any of the larger railway stations in London? I merely desire information. Until yesterday, I had no idea there were any families or persons whose origin was a terminus.
Miss Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square, Southwest, Jervis Park, Dorking, Surrey, and the Sporran, Hyshire, NB.
3 addresses always inspire confidence, even in tradesmen. So far, I am satisfied.
How extremely kind of you, Lady Bracknell. I have also in my possession, you'll be pleased to hear, certificates of Miss Cardew's birth, baptism, whooping cough, registration, confirmation, vaccination, and the measles, both the German and English variety.
Gwendolen, the time approaches for our departure. We have not a moment to lose. As a matter of form, Mr. Worthing, I suppose I must ask if Miss Cardew has any little fortune?
Oh, about £130,000 in the funds. That is all. Goodbye, Lady Bracknell.
A moment, Mr. Worthing. £130,000, and in the funds. Miss Cardew is a most attractive young lady now that I look at her. Few girls nowadays have any really solid qualities, any of the qualities that last and improve with time. We live, I regret to say, in an age of surfaces. Dear child, your dress is sadly simple, and your hair is almost as nature might have left it. But that can all be easily altered. A thoroughly experienced French maid produces a really marvellous result in a very brief space of time. Kindly turn round, dear child. Chin a little higher, dear. Style largely depends on the way the chin is worn. They are worn very high just as present. And now, as regards Algernon.
Yes, Aunt Augusta?
There are distinct social possibilities in Miss Cardew's profile.
Cecily is the dearest, sweetest, prettiest girl I ever saw. I don't care 2 pence about social possibilities.
Never speak disrespectfully of society, Algernon. Only those who can't get into it do that. Dear child, of course you know Algernon has nothing but his debts to depend upon. But I do not approve of mercenary marriages. When I married Lord Bracknell, I had no fortune of any kind, but I never dreamed of allowing that to stand in my way. Well, I suppose I must give my consent.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell.
You may address me as Aunt Augusta for the future.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
The marriage, I think, had better take place quite soon. To speak frankly, I am not in favour of long engagements. They give people the opportunity of finding out each other's character before marriage, which I think is never advisable.
I beg your pardon for interrupting you, Lady Bracknell, but this engagement is quite out of the question. I am Miss Cardew's guardian, and she cannot marry without my consent until she comes of age. That consent I absolutely decline to give.
Upon what grounds, may I ask? Algernon is an extremely, I may almost even say, ostentatiously eligible young man. He has nothing, but he looks everything. What more can one desire?
It pains me very much to have to speak frankly to you, Lady Bracknell, about your nephew. But the fact is, I do not approve at all of his moral character. I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew Algernon? Impossible! He is an Oxonian.
I fear there can be no possible doubt on the matter. This afternoon, during my temporary absence in London on an important question of romance, he obtained admission to my house by the means of the false pretense of being my brother. Continuing in his disgraceful deception, he succeeded in the course of the afternoon in alienating the affections of my only ward. He subsequently stayed to tea and devoured every single muffin, and what makes his conduct all the more heartless is that he was perfectly well aware from the first that I have no brother, that I have never had a brother, and that I do not intend to have a brother, not even of any kind.
Sweet child, how old are you, dear?
Well, I am really only 18, but I always admit to 20 when I go to evening parties.
You are quite right in making some slight alteration. Indeed, no woman should ever be quite accurate about her age. It looks so calculating. Well, it will not be very long until you are of age and free from the restraints of tutelage.
It is only fair to tell you that, according to the terms of her grandfather's will, Miss Cardew does not come legally of age until she is 35.
That does not seem to me a very grave objection. 35 is a very attractive age. London society is full of women of the very highest birth, who have, of their own free choice, remained 35 for years.
Algie, do you think you could wait till me till I was 35?
Of course I could, Cecily. You know I could.
Yes, I felt instinctively that you could. But I don't think I could wait that long. I can hardly wait even 5 minutes for anybody.
Then what's to be done, Cecily?
I don't know, Mr. Moncrieff.
My dear Mr. Worthing, as Miss Cardew states positively that she cannot wait until she is 35, a remark which I am bound to say shows a somewhat impatient nature. I would beg of you to reconsider your decision.
Oh, but my dear Lady Bracknell, the matter is entirely in your own hands. The moment you consent to my marriage with Gwendolen, I will most gladly allow your nephew to form an alliance with my ward.
You must be quite aware that what you propose is out of the question. That is not the destiny I propose for Gwendolen. Algernon, of course, can decide for himself. Come, dear, we have already missed 5, if not 6 trains. To miss any more might expose us to comment on the platform.
Everything is quite ready for the christenings.
The christenings, sir? Is that not somewhat premature?
Both these gentlemen have expressed a desire for immediate baptism.
At their age, the idea is grotesque and irreligious. Algernon, I forbid you to be baptized. I will not hear of such excesses.
Am I to understand, then, that there are to be no christenings at all this afternoon?
I don't think that, as things are now, it would be of much practical use to either of us, Dr. Chasuble.
I am grieved to hear such sentiments from you, Mr. Worthing. As your present mood seems to me one peculiarly secular, I will return to the church at once. Indeed, I've just been informed that Miss Prism has been waiting for me in the vestry.
A Miss Prism? Did I hear you mention a Miss Prism?
Yes, I am on my way to join her.
Pray allow me to detain you for a moment, sir. Is this Miss Prism a female of repellent aspect, remotely connected with education?
She is the most cultivated of ladies, and the very pitch of respectability.
It is obviously the same person. May I ask what position she holds in your household?
Miss Prism, Lady Bracknell, has been for the last 3 years Miss Cardew's esteemed governess and valued companion.
In spite of what I hear of her, I must see her at once. Let her be sent for.
She approaches. She is an eye.
I was told you expected me in the vestry, dear Canon. I have been waiting for you there for an hour and 3/4.
Prism! Come here, Prism. Prism! Where is that baby? 28 years ago, Prism, you left Lord Bracknell's house in charge of a perambulator that contained a baby of the male sex. You never returned. A few weeks later, the perambulator was discovered standing alone in a remote corner of Bayswater. It contained a manuscript of a 3-volume novel of a more than usually revolting sentimentality, but the baby was not there. Prism, where is that baby?
Lady Bracknell, I admit with shame that I do not know. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day you mention, a day that is forever branded in my memory, I prepared as usual to take the baby out in its perambulator. I had also with me a somewhat old but capacious handbag in which I had intended to place the manuscript of a work of fiction I had written during my few unoccupied hours. In a moment of mental abstraction, for which I can never forgive myself, I deposited the manuscript in the bassinet and placed the baby in the handbag.
But where did you deposit the handbag?
Do not ask me, Mr. Worthing.
Miss Prism, this is a matter of no small importance to me. I insist on knowing where you deposited the handbag that contained that child.
I left it in the cloakroom of one of the larger railway stations in London.
What railway station?
Victoria, the Brighton line.
Gwendolen, wait here for me.
If you're not too long, I will wait for you all my life.
What do you think this means, Lady Bracknell?
I dare not even suspect, Dr. Chasuble. I need hardly tell you that in families of high position, strange coincidences are not supposed to happen. In fact, they are hardly considered the thing.
This suspense is terrible. I hope it will last.
Is this the handbag, Miss Prism? Examine it carefully before you speak. The happiness of more than one life depends on your answer.
It seems to be mine. Yes, here is the injury it received during the upsetting of a Gower Street omnibus in younger and happier days. Here is the stain on the lining caused by the explosion of a temperance beverage. And here, on the lock, are my initials. I had forgotten that in an extravagant mood I had them placed there. The bag is undoubtedly mine. I'm delighted to have it so unexpectedly restored to me. It has been a great inconvenience being without it all these years.
Miss Prism, more is restored to you than this handbag. I was the baby that you placed in it.
You?
Yes. Mother!
Mr. Worthing, I am unmarried.
Unmarried? I do not deny that it is a serious blow. But after all, who has the right to cast a stone against one who has suffered? Why should there be one law for men and another for women? Mother, I forgive you.
Mr. Worthing, there is some error. There is the woman who can tell you who you really are.
Lady Bracknell, I hate to seem inquisitive, but could you kindly inform me who I am?
You are the son of my poor sister, Mrs. Moncrieff, and consequently Algernon's elder brother.
Algy's elder brother? Then I have a brother after all. I always said I had a brother. Cecily, how could you have ever doubted that I had a brother? Gwendolen, my unfortunate brother. Algy, you will have to behave to me with more respect in the future. You've never treated me like a brother in all your life.
I tried my best, old boy, I admit, although I was a little out of practice.
But what don't are you? What is your Christian name now that you've become someone else?
Your decision on the subject of my name is irrevocable, I suppose?
I never change. except in my affections.
Then the question had better be cleared up at once. Aunt Augusta, at the time that Miss Prism left me in the handbag, had I been christened already?
Every luxury that money could buy, including christening, had been bestowed upon you by your fond and doting parents.
Then I was christened. That is settled. Now, what name was I given? Let me know the worst.
Well, being the eldest son, you were naturally christened after your father.
Yes, but what was my father's Christian name?
I cannot at the present time recall what the general's Christian name was, but I have no doubt that he had one.
Algy, can't you recollect what our father's Christian name was?
My dear brother, we were never on speaking terms. He died before I was a year old.
His name would appear in the army list of the period, I suppose, Aunt Augusta?
I have no doubt that his name would appear in any military directory.
The army list of the last 40 years, I hear. These delightful records should have been my constant study. M. Generals. Malum, Maxbom, Nagley, what ghastly names they have. Markby, Migsby, Mobbs, Moncrieff. Lieutenant 1840, Captain, Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel, General 1869, Christian names. Ernest John. I always told you, Gwendolen, my name was Ernest, didn't I?
Ernest, my own Ernest. I felt from the first that you could have no other name.
Gwendolen, it is a terrible thing for a man to find out suddenly that all his life he has been telling nothing but the truth. Can you forgive me?
I can, for I feel you are sure to change.
My own one.
Letitia.
Frederick, at last.
Cecily, at last.
Gwendolen, at last.
My nephew, you seem to be showing signs of triviality.
On the contrary, Aunt Augusta, I've now realized for the first time in my life the vital importance of being earnest.
Wonderful job, everyone. We're so thrilled. I'm so thrilled with these actors, and I hope the audience is just as thrilled to have been able to join us. We're so thrilled to have you all here. Just a moment before we go into Q&A and chat. So I'm going to give the actors an opportunity to change their names. And I'd like to call out my alternate Cecily and Gwendolen from the other cast. Come out from backstage. They're running crew when they're not busy. So there's Lucy Glow, who plays Cecily in the other cast, and Tegan McGrail, who plays Gwendolen in the other cast. And then Oliver, who played the butlers, Lane and Merriman today, is the ALGERNON from the other cast. So we had 3 of the roles were double cast. And so we're so happy to have you all. You can go ahead and show us your backstage, show us what you're really standing in front of. Go ahead and change your names, add your real names to the screen. Audience, thank you so much for coming. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'd love to have a little chat with you. Feel free to post any comments or feedback in the chat box. Any questions in the Q&A. If you can't find the Q&A, just post them in the chat box. We'll be going back and forth between the two. I know some of you have been with us through the whole run, or at least through a couple of shows, but I know we also have some audience members who this was their first attendance of the Importance of Being Earnest. So we're so excited to have you all here. So they're posting their comments, so I'll just ask you a couple of questions while they're having time to go ahead and post things in the chat box. How many of you, was this your first ever play production? Time on stage. Kaitlyn, dear Kaitlyn, this was her debut role. That's quite a role to debut with as Cecily in The Importance of Being Earnest. And it was just beautiful. We're so happy to have been here for it. And then how many of you have never been in a production at Arizona Homeschool Theater Group before? Kaitlyn, of course. And Scott. And Scott has done theater elsewhere, but never with us. But his older brother, Nate, used to do quite a bit with us. So hello, Nate, if you're out there. We're so happy to have Scott here. And then let's see, how many of you is this your first time performing in Zoom? Hands? A few of you. And then some of you actually performed with me in Zoom last fall, so sort of, sort of dipped our toes into the waters for the first time and learned quite a lot. How many of you, is this your first time attempting an accent other than your own? I think all the hands go up, and I think they did a splendid job. So a question that's come up a couple of times, what accent is it that you are doing? What did you study and what did you perform? Anyone? Lucy.
The kind of British accent that we did was RP, which stands for I forget now.
Someone else. Scott.
I think it's recessed pronunciation.
Received, yes. Received pronunciation. Yes, sometimes also known as an Oxford accent or BBC accent, the accent that most of the newscasters on the BBC would use. It's sort of considered like a standard British accent, what you would be taught in school and received when it was received in the upper classes. So that's what they've been studying. There are so many dialects in England, considering it's such a very small country, really relatively. But we had a lot of fun exploring RP, received pronunciation, and I think they did a splendid job. Let's see here. What are my other? We're going to go to questions from the audience. Yes. Oh, before we go to, let's go to comments first. So the comments really we find in Zoom end up being like our applause because we can't hear you applaud. We just have a little sound cue there that we added in. So let me go back here in the chat box. From Heather, great job, everyone. From Lonnie Axman, mother to 3 of our performers, raise your hands. We have 3 siblings in the show, even though relations are a tedious pack of people. I know I say that every show, but not all of our audience is with us every show. And then I have my tedious relation over here. Oliver Christie is my son. So thank you, Lonnie. She says, bravo, so proud of you all. And then from me, who is me? Oh, that's from Jen Peters. Who is that to you, Kaitlyn? That's your mom, right? Yes. Bravo. Fabulous job. I've enjoyed watching the cast grow through the 4 performances. Yes, it really has. I mean, we've seen so much growth from just those, 4 performances. If we kept going on and on like a regular theater production, they'd be just flawless by next weekend. Let's see, from Heather, I love you, Emma. You were awesome. And Heather. And Martin Roundy, congratulations to all of the actors, and we are especially proud of our 3 wonderful grandchildren, Annika, Ava, and Torben. Also love Ava's outfit. Ava, please tell us about your outfit. Where on earth would one find a Lady Bracknell costume in 2021?
We couldn't find one, so my amazing mom sewed it. She's awesome. I love you.
She is. And she used an original Victorian pattern, made these huge, beautiful Victorian mutton chop sleeves, and then they helped put that hat together as well. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love it. We're a very, we might be a small theater company with a very small budget, but the parents really make us look like a professional theater company when all is said and done. So thank you, parents, for putting all these gorgeous costumes together. On that subject, I'd like Emma to tell us where she found that fabulous dress for her Gwendolen.
So before Carrie decided on doing The Importance of Being Earnest, my mom found this costume in the top of her closet. She had used it in one of the plays that she was in when she was 13. So then when I found out that I was Gwendolen, it just fit that part so perfectly that we fixed it up and made sure that it was perfect.
It was just meant to be, wasn't it? I mean, she found it before you were even cast, and she used that so many years ago. And so it's such a beautiful story that you both got to wear that same costume in theatrical roles as teenagers. I love it so much. I love it. That's we just sort of piece our costumes together. The parents are always amazing, but that's certainly a unique story, as is Ava's. I mean, using a Victorian pattern and just putting that together is also incredible. I've got some more comments from the Gillette family. So amazing. Very impressive. Martin Randy, whoever made it is a fine seamstress. Yes, referring to Lonnie making Ava's costume. Indeed, she is. Always, always incredible. From the Wilcox-Vogler family, hello, AZHT alumni. It was truly delightful. So happy to see you in the audience. Hello, and from the Gillette family, and so funny. Well, we're glad you found it so. We certainly find it funny ourselves, and they've really worked so hard. From Jenny Hawks, that's Abby's mom, Miss Prism's mom. Carrie, you are wonderful. Oh, thank you. Thank you for your hard work in selecting such a delightful play and in working these kids through accents and the rest over the internet. You're amazing. What a talented group of actors. Thank you, and I agree. They are a very talented group of actors, and it was my pleasure. It was really fun, and part of the selection of this play was, one, that I've always loved it, but two, that in the age of Zoom performances, Oscar Wilde's delightful plays are in the public domain, and we don't have to ask for permission to live stream them or cut them how we see fit for time. We sort of trimmed it just a little bit. And so I've actually found that that's one of the most popular plays that people are producing in Zoom because we don't have any limitations on it, but it was a perfect opportunity to do it. We usually have about 30 people participating in a session at AZHT, but because we had sort of a smaller, more condensed group who were interested in participating over Zoom, it was just the absolute perfect time to take this wonderful play and produce it with a smaller cast. We're usually only doing big shows, so it was such a great opportunity to do this play with a smaller group of actors. Judy Adams, for some of you, 2 performances in one day. Yes, raise your hand if you have performed this twice in one day. Most of you. So, Scott and Oliver flip-flopped their roles, but did perform the play twice in one day. And then the Cecilys and Gwendolens were there to back each other up and turn each other's cameras off and support each other. It's a really wonderful thing throughout the show. So when they're not on stage, they're still busy running it. Judy says, I loved all 4 since Thursday. So much dialogue to memorize. It really is a lot. Was that one of the biggest challenges, guys? That's a lot of text to memorize. You all did splendidly. Emma, tell me about it.
The hardest part was mostly that, like, especially with the girls, they start the lines in the same exact way, like an admirable idea, an excellent idea, and it's all so similar that you just get it all mixed up. And then I actually twice stole Kaitlyn's lines, then she had to say it again.
But it worked anyway, because if you just carry on with it, I mean, Oscar Wilde does use a lot of repetition, so it can be very confusing, and that's part of the joke, right? You know, there's an old saying that, you know, comedy comes in 3, so he would use repetition to build on that, like, I'm never wrong, I'm invariably right? So we have these repetitions, but it does make it especially challenging to remember exactly where you are in the script. This says, hi from Abby's dad is the name of the person. So that would be Abby's dad. What a delightful show. All 4 performances. You all should be proud of yourselves and each other. True. For all the hard work. It was tremendously entertaining to watch. Special love to my Abby for your excellent portrayal of Miss Prism. You're awesome. I quite agree. Miss Prism is one of my absolute favorites. I love every one of these characters, but oh my goodness, she makes me chuckle. And Abby really hit it. Let's see, from Grammy, Taryn, Ian, and Steve. That is my mother and Oliver's Aunt Taryn, Uncle Ian, and cousin Steve. Well done, everyone. We really enjoyed watching both casts. They came to opening night, so they saw the other cast, and then they've come to closing to see this cast. Congratulations to our grandson and nephew, Oliver. Great job in both roles. So Oliver and Scott had a special challenge. Just a couple of days before this week began, before all our dress rehearsals and our technical rehearsals and our shows began, they were thrust into the roles of Lane and Merriman without much notice, because we were very sadly lost one of our actors to a family emergency. Amelie, if she's out in Zoomland or ever gets to watch this show, we are thinking of you and we love you and miss you. So Scott and Oliver, thinking they were going to play Algernon and alternate cast, were suddenly thrust into the roles of the 2 butlers this week. So I think they both did an excellent job carrying that on and really stepping in for each other to support each other. April, Hello, April. Is that my April out there? This was so enjoyable. You all did amazing. I love you, Emma. Oh, is that an Emma April? Is that an April? That's your April. It's not my April. It's your April. It's hard to know when people sign in with one name. It could be anyone. Oh, that's Emma's April, and we love her too, April. Yes, she's wonderful. And so, Emma, tell us, where are you performing from?
I'm performing from Oregon.
And where did you begin rehearsals?
I began rehearsals in Arizona, and then right as Tech Week hit, we moved.
Yeah, so that is definitely a benefit of Zoom, that if a cast member has to move away unexpectedly to another state a couple of weeks before the show, they can still participate. I mean, it was a lot of extra work for Emma to create her new acting studio in a different space and to move around in the middle of rehearsals. But at least she got to still do the show. We didn't lose her at all, so we're very happy about that. But that is definitely a benefit of Zoom, which goes along with the fact that we have audience members, potentially from all over the world. In the fall, we had England, Sweden, and Australia in attendance, and then all over the United States. I know this afternoon we had my English family in attendance. I would love it if the audience just types in the chat box where they are viewing us from, because that's always fun. But we don't usually have actors quite so far out of town. So it's really fun, really wonderful that Emma was still able to participate. From Richard Murphy, great job, everyone. Scott, I hope you do not hear us laughing in the next room. That's from Nate, from his brother Nate. I know it's challenging because a lot of these actors have audience members in their household in another space, and everyone's trying not to infringe on the other. They're trying not to actually be broadcast. Emma.
Also, it's really hard when they laugh in the other room and you can hear them, but you're still on screen and muted, and you also want to laugh at the joke.
It is a unique challenge, isn't it? I mean, of course, normally we would hear an audience laugh, but it's a little different and there's a little lag time. So if you hear any of the broadcasts from the other room, there's a little lag. And so it can be a little disconcerting. At one point tonight, we had all the doors open. Oliver and I are on the performance panel. And then my son Alfie's in the living room watching the show. And if all the doors were open during intermission, it was a very eerie, sort of swirling of the music. I felt like I was going to, fall over because the sound was so eerie. And some of you probably experienced that in your homes as well. Ava?
Yeah, because we're all in the same house, at least our siblings and I, we have to have 3 different spaces plus a space for the rest of our family to view. And so we have 4 devices around the house. And if all the doors are open, you can just hear it everywhere, and it's crazy.
It can be really disconcerting because of the slightly different timing of all the sounds. So it's kind of, it's enough to make you dizzy. It's so true. That is a unique challenge. So you all saw they had, it looked like they were in the English countryside and in a London flat and an English country manor. And look where they really are. I mean, this is our behind the scenes glimpse into and a bit of our theater education for the community. Look at this. They have about a 2 by 3 foot at most acting space, often in their bedrooms or another space they've carved out in their homes. They've probably got, things around them. I mean, laundry, their bed, books, whatever, on the floor, so to actually live in the environment that we are trying to create while they're surrounded by their normal environment is quite a feat. They don't even get to go to a theater, leave their stuff at home, and enter this world on stage. They had to live the reality of this environment with a green curtain behind them and all their stuff, their normal stuff surrounding them in their own homes. Emma.
My mom, every time we did like a show or anything, like the shows and the rehearsals, my mom had to clear off my workspace while I wasn't looking because I had just all of my other stuff, not my acting stuff, just on the table where my computer is currently.
Right, so they've got their all away, and their computer and their desk becomes their their camera and their prop table, all at once. And some of them, in order to get the proper height in the camera and still be able to stand up if they step back a little and still be on screen, are sitting on books and pillows and stools and all kinds of contraptions just to try. It seems so simple, really, and it looks so, I think, flawless in the end, but it was quite challenging just to get the placement of the cameras. Let's see, we've got a couple of comments here. We've got Martin Rowney in Utah, April in Centerville, Utah. Heather says, love the backgrounds. Well done. That was really fun. Those are actual pictures of real places in England. So that was really fun. Made us look like we know really how to make a set. It's a little, I mean, in some ways challenging, but also a little easier if you think about it. When my father started watching this afternoon, he was really quite impressed that we had built this set together until he realized that we're actually performing in different spaces with a virtual background. I hadn't told him. And from, what is this? From, who says, I teleported, so that's from someone too. I can't see where that comment came from. That might have been from one of my actors. Let's look at the Q&A box. Tempe South Steak is the name. I don't know. Does anyone know who that is? You mentioned yesterday the name of the accent. What was it? Oh, we ended up answering that. Yes, received pronunciation. The kids did such a good job of the accent. Agreed. Lonnie Axman, what's your favorite word to say with a British accent? That's a great question. What word? Kaitlyn.
Girlish.
Girlish. Yes, it's one of my girlish dreams, right? Ava.
Ordinary.
Yes. Lucy.
Certainly.
Emma.
Married.
Yes. Anyone else? Favorite words? Annika.
Earnest.
Yes, earnest becomes an entirely different word when you add the accent, right? Anyone else? Your favorite accented words? No. Let's see. I've got another question. Jenny Hawks says, bravo. That's Abby's mom. Such fun. Great job, everyone. We loved every minute of every show. Abby's mom and siblings. What was the most challenging part of this specific show? And what was the best thing about this specific show? Do you mean this specific performance? Or just this whole show in particular, The Importance of Being Earnest? Well, did we have any hiccups today? I mean, this was a great show, I have to say. You really all brought it home for closing. Kaitlyn, any hiccups today?
I could not, for the life of me, remember some of my lines at one point.
Got a little hung up? You covered it very well. I doubt our audience knew anything about that. Maintaining character is key, and you did very well with that. Emma, how about you?
Like I said, I just kept on stealing Kaitlyn's lines over and over again.
You can blame Oscar for that. It's he uses a lot of similarity and repetition to get his point across. It's very difficult to avoid. Anyone else? Any hiccups, Kaitlyn?
I see my mother in the chat encouraging me to tell you all. My computer actually died like right after I turned my camera off for the second act.
Yes, I'm glad someone commented in the chat box and said, did Kaitlyn get knocked out? So when she came back in, we had to give her co-host permissions again so that she could actually enter the scene. And also, she had to change her name again from Kaitlyn back to Cecily because she got kicked out between acts, right? At least it happened while we were off stage, right? Emma, not in the middle of a scene. Emma.
At the beginning, well, not the beginning, like the middle or close to the end of the third act, when I came in, I still had my first act background on. So then everybody else was outside, and so then I had to I was started the scene standing. So then I would have, as soon as I got sitting, I also was the first one to say the line after we sat down. So I was like, and I'm scrolling and can't remember my line at the same time. That's great.
You did very well. It was very good. It just looked like a slight technical glitch. Didn't look like it was your fault or that it had anything to do with you at all. You were just Gwendolyn in character, and I don't think the audience knew you were responsible for that at all. They probably thought it was me. They probably thought I forgot to change your background. The actors have that added challenge. They have to make their own set changes and remember to change their virtual backgrounds between acts, but I thought it was very smooth how you sat down and changed it and still managed to carry on with the scene, because it is hard to do both. It's very hard to do both, to stay in character, remember the next line, and work on your video settings all at once. Yes, it's funny to do a Victorian play in cyberspace, wouldn't you say? It's such a little bit of an anachronism. Anyone else? Any comments on that? Any hiccups? Annika.
Well, we are on the tail end of a very long week, and we're a little tired. So there was a certain point, I think, in Act 2 where I completely blanked on what I was supposed to say. So I just kind of went like this for a second. But it worked out. It's fine.
It's amazing how you all just kept going no matter what. And Oliver at one point was trying to enter as this is just technical stuff that can sometimes happen in Zoom. The other day we had Emma get frozen on the screen. We couldn't get her off at all. I mean, Gwendolyn's trying to exit and she was just frozen and we couldn't get her to exit. And then this time Oliver was trying to enter as Merriman and announce someone's arrival. Was that as Merriman? Yes.
Yeah.
And he could not for the life of him get on the screen. So, they had to give up and just enter without him. And then he entered at the same time. Another time, he was trying to cover for someone else getting stuck on an entrance, but he didn't unmute himself because it wasn't an entrance he normally did anymore. So he tried to come on and announce Emma, I think, right? He tried to come on and announce you, but he was muted. He was trying to help you out on an entrance. Yes, Emma.
Yeah. So my mom and dad, they were like, oh, you don't need this anymore. So then they put my script way over there. But I didn't realize that I didn't know exactly when to enter because we had taken out Lane and Merriman's entrance. So then I was like, was it then that I'm supposed to enter? Because there was like 4 lines of just stage instructions and I couldn't figure out when I was actually supposed to enter because we took out Lane coming in to announce me on that scene.
Right. So we, make some alterations and it gets quite confusing. And then it wasn't in front of you. So she was worried about whether it was time to enter. So then Oliver tried to come on and announce her. But he was muted and they entered at the same time. So these are some of the fun things that happen in Zoom. Someone wrote, I was very impressed with that situation, Emma. You did fabulous. So I think that was Kaitlyn's mom writing that. You really did maintain composure and change your scene so that you were still not in ALGERNON's flat while everyone else was in the countryside. It was very well done and very early in the scene. Let's see, in the Q&A, I think we might have got another question. Jill, Abby's aunt, says, I watched every show and was entertained every single time. How lovely. You were also expressive. I just loved it. I'll be getting a copy to watch again. Yes, we're going to post all these shows on YouTube so you can watch whichever one you like. Oh, Jenny said I meant this specific performance. Yes, so all the hiccups of this specific performance. And I think one of the challenges, as Annika mentioned, was that it's been a very long week for these actors and they're very tired. And they really, to my mind, kept the energy up no matter how tired they felt. Emma.
So it was the in the chat box, somebody said something about Annika. So then I had a thing to say about that, but then I realized as I put my hand up that you hadn't read that yet. So
oh, that's quite all right. Yes, it says Annika's never had so many lines before. I've been so impressed that she was able to memorize such an insane number of lines. That's from her mother, Lonnie. I agree. Annika, no one in our audience would ever guess that this was just not what you do on any ordinary day because really, she probably had the most lines of anyone in the play. I haven't counted them. And I was never afraid she was going to, I just never was fearful she was going to get stuck. She rarely got stuck. And when she did, she covered it so well. I didn't even know. And I'm the director. I know the script. So I've just never even thought for a moment that we had to worry about Annika's lines. Emma.
Also, she's in all of them. She plays all the Jacks in all 4 performances.
All the Jacks.
All the Jacks. All the Jacks. She doesn't get a double scene where she gets to take a break and just turn off their videos and be the running crew. No, she has to remember all the lines for all 4. And she did fantastic at it.
Oh,
yes.
Oh, that's great.
It really is a feat. It really is. And I think that some of our audience members didn't even realize until the chat back that Annika was actually Annika and not like Chuck or Joe or Henry, because she plays Jack so flawlessly that she fools people until, if they didn't get to see her bio at the beginning, and they just jump in and watch the show, they believe Jack could be Joe or Bob or Harry. I mean, honestly, I've heard that feedback. What? I didn't know that that was a teenage gal playing Jack. So believable. It is no small feat as an actor to play someone of another gender. The movement is a little different, the cadence is different, and Annika really stepped into that role. Of course, her lovely haircut just before Tech Week really helped just polish it off to make it even more believable. It's like that line about Algernon looking everything. You look everything. You really do. Very dapper. So congratulations to Annika, because that really is an extra challenge. Oh, look, I've got Oliver walking in behind me. Do you have something to say?
Oh, no.
No. My son Oliver just left his screen and walked into mine. Maybe he's telling me that it's time to wrap it up. Let's see. I have loved Annika as Jack's fabulous job. That's from Kaitlyn's mom, I believe. And yes, Lonnie said so dapper. Definitely dapper. I'm just going to cast you in every English romantic comedy from now on, as if I had that power.
Oh, thank you for all the compliments.
We've now embarrassed her thoroughly. You all did a fine job, a very fine job. You all, every single one of you have cracked me up to no end. I'm sitting here chuckling and checking always that my microphone is actually off during the show, so that I'm not just chuckling into the performance. Emma.
I found it particularly hard this time in the third act. For some reason, I wanted to laugh at every single joke. I was just like,
yes, they have to not laugh at the jokes themselves. That's a challenge as well, isn't it? Something that we sometimes forget.
Yeah, they
were I mean, even those experienced actors on SNL break character and start chuckling in the middle of scenes sometimes, but none of them did. And these are very funny lines, and they know the jokes. Kaitlyn.
Some of you in the audience may have noticed my breaking of character and laughing at some of the things. I apologize for that.
Well, I mean, Cecily, if anyone on the screen can laugh at everyone else's situation, would be the character. So I don't think it stood out like a sore thumb or anything, because I've told her always that let Cecily enjoy this a little bit more. She is the youngest character in the show and maybe a little bit more jovial than the rest of them. Emma.
I forgot what I was going to say. That's why I put my hand down. Oh, yeah. You said that thing about SNL, but that was literally what I was thinking. I mean, if I have to break character, the professional actors on SNL do it all the time, so it's fine.
That's what was running through your head during tonight's performance, during Act 3. Someone, Heather, said, I had a couple literal LOL moments. Indeed, laughing out loud at this show. I would hope so. And it's funny, because when you're sitting there quietly in your own home and you're not in a big audience of other people laughing, it is a little bit of a different experience, right? But it's a good one, I hope. I think we've covered all the Q&A. I think we've covered all of the chat. We're so happy so many of you could join us for this performance. We've had lovely attendance at all 4 performances. And again, we'll post it to YouTube so you can watch it all again or share it with people who missed it. Annika.
Okay, before we close, I just wanted to say for you, Carrie, thank you. Like you've been on for like the entire week, not sleeping as much as you should. You've been doing all the tech work, plus directing us, plus like making sure that your son has the stuff for his role, both of them, and coordinating with everybody, and just you're amazing, and we love you so much, and thank you.
Not to mention she also has a full-time job.
Yeah, exactly.
Part-time job that feels full-time at times. Yes, I do have another job, but thank you all. You all make this worth it. I enjoy it so much. Oh, Jennifer A says to all of them, bravo, Carrie, thank you. Oh, indeed, you're welcome. Thank you all for coming. Judy Adams, Ava had a lot of dialogue too with attitude and carried it off with aplomb. That just popped up. Indeed, Ava trying to play a role 4 times her age, at least, and doing such an excellent job of it. Another challenge. Emma.
Just a thing to mention, she skipped her lunch on her birthday. Because she's Carrie. I don't know. She's just Carrie.
I usually end up doing the
Awesome.
spring show on my birthday, whether it falls on a performance or on a dress rehearsal, and I love it. I couldn't think of a better way to spend my birthday than with these fine people. Oh, now people are writing in the chat. And Annika, thank you for that sweetness. That was lovely. Let's see, this play would obviously not have been possible at all without Carrie. Oh, Scott, thank you. Or organized or planned. Thanks, Scott. That's very kind of you. I couldn't have done it without every single one of you. I love these actors and I'm so appreciative of their families. I look forward to working with you all again. We will have our little Zoom cast party on Monday. So we'll see each other on Monday after a day of rest. We are thankful for the audience for joining us. Follow us on Facebook. We don't know what's up next. Things are a bit up in the air for the fall, but we hope to be doing something. And so stay tuned and watch for our YouTube announcement when this is all posted there. Thanks, everyone. Thank you all. You wonderful actors. Wonderful, wonderful. Everyone, have a wonderful night. Thanks for joining us. Bye. Bye.